So I have to apologize a little bit because my slides are, most of the information is on my slides, so I'm going to be looking down a lot. The title of the talk is The Irony of Blocking Popular Trackers. People want privacy, but at what cost? But really, I'm going to be talking about how I kind of broke Twitter a little bit. So yeah, my name is Peter Lowe. I'm the Principal Security Researcher at DNSFilter. We're a protective DNS service, so we kind of block domains based on different categories. I run a block list that contains ads and trackers. I actually got my job because of this block list, because DNSFilter used the block list to classify domains as ads, which I think is, only took me 22 years of running a block list to get something out of it. So yeah, I have a terrible Twitter habit, so you can find me at PGL on Twitter, if you can get to it. So my domain, it's for domains which are ads and trackers. And I put anything on there which is an ad server or a tracker or primarily used for that purpose. You can view the list in a bunch of different formats. I think there's like 30 or so different formats for things like host files, zone files, Adblock Plus, in proxy pack format, all sorts of different things. It's included in a bunch of different software. It's one of the default lists in uBlock Origin. It's used by Brave, or I don't know if they're using it anymore, but they were. Pi-hole, Hostman, that kind of thing. And a lot of stuff which isn't necessarily web-based. So DNS, because it's just domains, it's quite useful for DNS blocking, and gets used that way quite a lot. It's got an awful website, terrible. Please, I haven't updated it for about 15 years, and I really do need to. But the data's good. It's got some checking scripts and stuff, so I think one reason why people like it is because it's quite good quality. Every entry on the list I've put on myself, and I've researched it, and usually the only times when I have to take anything off is when the domain has changed hands or changed purposes. It started off as just mostly ad servers, but it's now mostly trackers that get added or removed. And yeah, as I said, it's available in a ton of different formats. So you can list it as just trackers or just ads or whatever you like. Yeah, a couple of notes about this because a few notes, actually. Also, I should mention I'm terrible at slides. I always say that, but you can see the different fonts here and how everything's changing. Yeah, presentation's a different skill, so it's not something I'm good at. I never planned to be in this position. I just, 25 years ago, I put a list of ads and trackers on the list, or ad servers at the time, on the web. And other people found it useful. And they just, they started including it in their stuff, and I added more formats, and then other people started doing similar things, and then companies were created that were running, now we have a summit all about ad filtering. It's an interesting position for me to be in because a lot of people use my list, but I don't really have any kind of vested interest in how it's being used. I just put it out there for other people to use it as they want. So it's kind of my policy, what gets added. I'm the only person that controls what's on there, and it's an interesting position to be in. I don't have anyone to answer to, which is good and bad. It means I don't have anybody telling me what to do with the list. And actually, when I got my job, I made sure that there was like a special thing that my company couldn't influence what I was doing. And that's a good thing for me and maybe for the list and the integrity of the list, but it also means I can do whatever I like. And occasionally, it is a bit tempting to black hole somebody who is annoying me, but I'm pretty good. Yeah, it's been online for 25 years this year. I think I lay claim to being the oldest block list out there, so go me. I think there's something around 50 million users. It's difficult to tell. I mean, it's used in uBlock Origin and all these other places, and maybe it's 10 million, maybe it's 5. I don't know. But the thing is that if everybody stopped using it tomorrow, it wouldn't make any difference to me because I don't get anything. I have 30, 50 patrons on Patreon, which is like $100 a month or something. Yeah, so I don't have any stats. We've added caching. I was getting on 6 to 8 million downloads a day, and then we added caching, and now I don't have server logs anymore, and I had a little script that kind of updated a database. And yeah, I get delisting requests quite a lot because people don't like being on the list. A lot of marketing companies I put on the list, and then they contact me, and they think they shouldn't be on there for one reason or another, and I'll consider every request. But I get them quite regularly. And yeah, so I think about DNS blocking, it is a hammer. It's very broad. When you block a domain and you block a fully qualified domain, you're blocking a lot of stuff, potentially. And there's stuff it can't block, anything that's under a CDN or under a URL or something like that. I don't have the energy of someone like Ryan Fanboy to maintain a big list. So mine is about 3,500 entries, and it means I don't have to do so much work, basically. And one thing I think about the list is that it's a sort of a data source. So wherever someone is using it, they should make it easy to add exceptions in situations where you need to, for whatever reason. Different environments, different users, different software, whatever. Yeah, so a while ago, I decided to add t.co to my block list. Wednesday, May the 11th. There was a discussion on GitHub about a bounce tracker called go.usa.gov, I think it was. And someone complained that they were getting blocked, and it was being used for legitimate government purposes. And I said, well, it's a bounce tracker. It's tracking your link clicks. That's what my list includes, so it should be on the list. And they said, well, why aren't all these other ones on the list, like the Google one, the Google goo.gl, I think, was one, and a few others, and then t.co. And the other ones that they mentioned they have other purposes. Like, I think the Google one is actually a legit URL shortener. It's used in Google Maps. It makes URLs shorten. And I think the other ones were similar. But t.co really is just there for tracking. So I figured that's a fair point. It should be on my list. The problem is that I know that's going to cause issues for people. Here's the GitHub comment. Yeah, it's a bounce tracker. By this reasoning, all the other ones should be on there, and they don't understand the double standards. That's a fair point, right? And I thought about it. You can't opt out of t.co tracking. There's no way to get around it. There's no switch on Twitter to turn it off. And if you go and read about it, they say that it's for other purposes as well, like threat protection and stuff like that. There's a screenshot of this link may be unsafe, but I literally have never seen that. I say I have a bad Twitter habit. It is awful, but I've never seen that before. So all the other documentation it talks about how it's for tracking. It's for giving stats and metrics. And that kind of, I don't really like that. I don't like the fact that there's no way of opting out. It happens in the background. Most people don't know that when they click on a link on Twitter, they're getting their link click tracked by Twitter. So I added it. Yeah, why is it on there? It's a tracker. It's a bounce tracker. Other bounce trackers are blocked, so why not? I got a couple of complaints. The single most thing that people complain about for my list, that I get random users emailing me and complaining that something's on my list. And by the way, a lot of people confuse me with the maintainers of like uBlock Origin, because in uBlock Origin, when you get a block page, it says this link was blocked by, and then it says the name of the list. And the name of my list is Peter Lowe's ad and tracking server software list or something like that. So people go and Google me, and then they find out my name, and they say, hey, why are you blocking this thing for me? I had one nice old lady who was trying to contact her knitting newsletters friends, and couldn't click a link because it was blocked by postmark.it or I think some constant contact tracker or something like that. And so they kind of, I mean, I understand why people complain about it. It's fair enough. It's the most visible kind of blocking that happens in a tracker, in a piece of software like that, because most of the other blocking happens in the background. It's the trackers that don't get contacted by tracking pixels or something. But for bounce trackers, you're trying to get somewhere, and you're going through a bounce tracker, and you get blocked. You see the page. And people just want things to work. So yeah, I got a few people contact me. They weren't very happy. Your blocker is killing good information. Very bad false positive. One guy was giving me a bit of advice. He uses uMatrix, and he's no longer able to open any link on Twitter. So, sorry, I should explain. T.co is when you click a link on Twitter, you get sent to the destination URL, and it bounces you through that shortener. Yeah, so it stopped people clicking on links on Twitter. And yeah, it was pretty inevitable that I got people complain. There were more and more and more people who were upset with me. And yeah, one person on Twitter saying, "Hello, sir, just to inform you that your ad list had the t.co domain on it, and now this Twitter link and all others are broken when it's used." One guy was just saying it's not for ads, but it appeared on my list. Thanks for your work. Someone else was, they were varying degrees of detail. There was also a bit of interesting commentary as well. Evie, who I don't know if anybody knows, fairly popular Twitterer, they posted a screenshot of the uBlock Origin block page. And they said, okay, I mean, I get it, you're not wrong, but also with the implication that, hey, come on, this is a bit much. And then someone else who replied with, they saw this, they thought about it, and then they kind of get it. All right, yeah. The only difference between having this filter and not having this filter is that, So what happened almost immediately after this, by the way, hang on, there's, a bit more. A lot of people just discovering that it was blocked, and then other people added exceptions. What happened almost immediately after I did this, and I did it without really notifying anybody beforehand, was that unbreak rules got added. There was an exclusion added. In uBlock Origin in particular, they want to make sure that people keep using the software, that they get the benefits of the software without breaking Twitter. And so they decided to add an unbreak or a bad filter rule, which makes sure that it's bypassed, which is fair enough. That's how anybody wants to do it. That's great. This one guy, Simon McGar, said, we also discovered that every link was blocked. This was solved by whitelisting the t.co domain. And for me, that's a great solution. That's using the software in the way that it should be used. You've decided to add an exclusion. You're OK with this happening. You know it's happening now, and you've added an exception. You said, yep, I'm fine with that. I actually do that myself. So I have accepted that I can't turn off t.co tracking, and I'm OK with it. I like Twitter. I don't mind them knowing. But it's on my list now, and now I've made that choice, rather than it just happening without my choice. So a lot of the people from the previous slides, these guys, who were very angry at first, when I replied to them, and I had a copy and paste thing because I got a lot of these, the main response I got after that was, oh, OK, thanks. You can see that, OK, got it, thanks for your work and the kind explanation. Thanks for your answer. That's OK. Sorry, I think I've copied it. No, not meant to be on there. But the main sort of follow-up to that was, oh, all right, fair enough. And I think that's what I was a bit surprised by it, I'll be honest. I think there's still some people who think that I shouldn't have done it. I think some of them are in this audience, actually. Yeah, there's a few more here. There was a guy who said, actually, I just use knitter as much as possible so it doesn't affect me. And yeah, a few more people who were just saying, all right, thanks. So the title of my talk is The Irony of Blocking Popular Trackers. This was the thing that struck me about the whole situation. The more popular a tracker is, and the more popular a bounce tracker is in particular, the more likely it is that an exclusion is going to be added, which is ironic because it means that the more tracking is happening, the more likely it is to be blocked. It's a sort of too big to fail situation, which it frustrates me because it feels like once things get past a certain point, there's not much you can do about it. I don't really have a good solution to this, by the way. I don't know. I just found it ironic. And I don't know if that's really serving the users. I would ask the people who've added the exceptions in whatever software they've got to answer the question, are you really serving your users? What's your mission? And by adding an automatic exclusion for something like this, then are the people who want privacy actually getting it? Maybe it is. Maybe that's what you've got to do to have something that's useful. You know, maybe for uBlock Origin, they've made a value judgment and they said, right, we need to enable T.0 because we're going to piss off too many people otherwise. But I don't really know how else you're going to create awareness. One of the things that did come out of this, which I was happy about, was that more people were aware of the fact that their links get tracked when they go through, when they click on a link on Twitter. There were a lot of people who contacted me who had no idea. You can see from the messages at the beginning, they were saying, thank you, I didn't know about that, thanks. So now, you know, and they can go on and click, you know, add exclusion. It's a pretty easy button. I think the UI in uBlock Origin in particular needs redesigning, but, you know, it's usually fairly easy if you just read what's in front of you. With DNS blocking, it's a little bit harder usually, especially if you need to configure something at the DNS level to allow a particular domain, but you know, it should be easy. So some people think I'm making a big deal about this whole tracking stuff, and I wanted to point out some of the reasons why it's not an entirely hypothetical danger. There was a thing that happened in the US recently with the anti-abortion laws. And people's geolocation data is being used against them now. So there's people who went to visit anti-abortion clinics. And at the time, you know, they didn't worry about that. They didn't worry that they were being tracked or that their location on their phone was on. And now that the laws have changed there, it's a different situation. That data is being used against them. And they probably... Sorry, the slides just went blank there. They probably had no idea that they were being tracked, that having your location enabled on your phone is actually recording anything. A lot of people just have it on by default and don't realize the issues. So it's not an entirely... Now that it's being used against them, I think this kind of illustrates how this kind of tracking, if you're not aware of it, and it can be used against you in the future, is a bad thing. You know, it's not entirely hypothetical. I think that if I was a Twitter user and I was interested in living in the US, and I was searching for people who could give me information on abortion clinics or something like that, and I didn't know that I'd been being tracked. I was being tracked before, but now I did. It would help me. It would give me some kind of information about how to behave on the internet, some kind of warning about what could happen. The I have nothing to hide doesn't work forever. And there's a lot of stuff happening in the world these days which is kind of scary, you know, in various parts of the world where different regimes and the governments are acting in ways that we might not really think to do ourselves, but yeah, anyway, this is a long conversation, and maybe we can talk about it later. But I just want to say that it's not it's not just that I'm doing this to be a dick. It's because I think there is actually genuinely some value in creating awareness and making sure that people know what's going on and giving them the option to opt out if they want. So yeah, this user awareness is a big thing for me. I think that even if it was on there for a short time and exclusions were added very quickly afterwards, it at least created a bit of a conversation about it. The people that were able to add an exclusion did it themselves. They exercised user agency, which is a really big thing for me. And even if they were annoyed, they do know about it now. And hopefully in the future they should be aware so that they will let them know that when they click on a link, before they click on a link, they're going to be tracked. And it turns out most people didn't mind in the end. They were pretty happy when they understood what was going on. Bunch of links. I will share a link to these slides later on. And I've got 4 minutes left. I've got through this a bit quickly. Any questions? No questions, great. Okay, right.
So, Peter.
So.
Okay, so if a business rolls this out on their server to the users on their network, there is no chance of them making an exclusion on a per computer basis. So basically, the DNS filter can be used as a network-wide block. Mm-hmm. So if someone on that network decides, I'm going to browse Twitter, they can't just make an exclusion. It's blocked. It's blocked for them. They can't make this call. I mean, for the sake of web compatibility, is it too wide-ranging? This, just knowing that you, in some instances, where a DNS filter can be applied to more than just one computer.
Yeah, I get the question. So I would ask a question in return is, what's the alternative? Don't bother?
Well, you didn't have it previously.
Yeah, but I had other bounce trackers. So by my own policy of adding things which track you on the internet, then it should be on the list. And what I've tried to do is tried to remain consistent to the principles I stated, which is that my list includes servers which are primarily used for the purposes of tracking, which includes t.co. And if other people want to take that data and use it in a different way or add exclusions, that's up to them. That's okay. But I feel like that's, I don't know, I may be sort of hiding behind that a little bit, but I'm also quite lazy and don't want to make the hard decisions. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't think that there is a really good answer. I don't think there's a really good solution. I'm glad that there is more conversation about it now, but the ideal solution would be for Twitter to add an exclusion. So another common situation is that people complain about bounce trackers that are used for email marketing. So news like click.postmark.it and rs0.rs6.net, things like that. They're commonly used when you click a link in an email newsletter. You get bounced through that so that it knows that you clicked that link, and also registers and open and stuff like that. And when those are added to my list, a lot of people who can't click links in their emails complain. Usually, most email service providers offer an option to disable that tracking. So if you're operating a newsletter and you care about privacy, you can turn it off. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't really have an answer, mate. Not a good one, anyway.
We do bounce tracking in Brave, where we'll strip the URL.
Yeah.
And that's, to be honest, a better way of, rather than just block the domain outright. We can't do it for something like t.co because there's no obvious method, unless you start having a dictionary of the URL and the t.co stuff. That's probably the only way of doing this. But if it starts including another URL to the destination, you can essentially just strip out the tracker bit and just actually go for the proper bit. Yeah,
there's different approaches with bounce trackers. I think one thing that I've considered doing for my list in particular, to try and make it more useful to people who are using the list, is sort of sub-classifying trackers. So this year I added a little thing where you can list only trackers or only ad servers. And what I might do is try and treat bounce trackers as a special case because they are problematic. And if I could allow people to filter them out, it might be more useful. So yeah. But yeah, there's no good solution to that one. If people really want to get around it as a bounce tracker, they'll find a way to prevent you blocking it, without it breaking completely.
Hi, Peter. Well, I won't troll you again this time, but we're not on Twitter anymore. After all, well, the question is, what would you advise to the content blocker developers? So your thing with Twitter definitely attracted some attention to the question, but this should be solved not by the list. The list just blocks things, categorizes things. This probably should be solved by content blockers. What should be the right policy to handle this kind of trackers? What do you think?
That's a good question. I think make it easy to add an exclusion, but make it very clear what's going on. I talk about uBlock Origin a lot because it's one of the more visible uses of my list, for me at least. So that when you get a block from uBlock Origin, you have a page that pops up. You saw it earlier. This link has been blocked because of this list. I think it needs redesigning because a lot of people are confused by it, and it's very. If you read it out as a sentence, it says add an exclusion for this temporarily or permanently, and I don't know. I think the design needs updating. So I think it is actually being changed. So yeah, if that was simpler, like two easy buttons like allow or continue blocking, but also let people know what's going on. There's not very much context.
So would you like, as a filters maintainer, to have an option to leave a message?
Yes, that would be excellent.
Would you be able to translate it to 50 languages?
No. But you've got to start somewhere, right? You said you weren't going to troll me. Come on, give me a break. I don't have the answers to all of the things, man. I can hide behind I'm just a list maintainer thing again. But I suppose I have to sort of accept some responsibility. What I have said is that next time I think I'm going to do something like this, I will try and give some notice to the UBO guys, and there's a little community we've got, so try and give a heads up. But that means that then the exclusion will get added before, and then people won't find out about it, and these kind of good things that happened as a result of annoying people won't happen.
If I may,
Sure.
Telling people doesn't mean they'll actually see it.
I know. But, there's no perfect solution to any of these things. There's no, we're done, we're finished, we've solved this problem. You can only make incremental steps towards making things better. So having a better design page and informing more people there's always going to be people who misunderstand it or miss click the wrong thing or don't read the fine print or whatever. But having a conversation and trying to give some people, making life a bit better, raising awareness a bit more, I think that's the best we can hope to achieve, really. I'm
Hi,
off.
Peter.
Oh, hey.
I have a different line of questioning. I was wondering, do you currently use any automation techniques to create or maintain your lists?
Yeah, a bit. Well, okay, I manually verify each entry for my list, which is one reason why there's not that many. It's 3,500, which is tiny compared to some block lists. But I do some sort of automated exploration sometimes. I write little scripts to go off and scan sites. At work, for DNSFilter, we're doing 36 billion queries a day, and I would like to use some of that data to try and identify trackers, but not much, to be honest. It's mostly manual work, and I quite like it that way because it means that I know what's going on. There's a very low false positive rate. I mean, I think so.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, enough trackers.
Just one last question. If
Sure. All right, here we go.
you will like this one. Could you please tell me, Peter, what is a tracker?
Oh, God. Twice now you said you weren't going to try me. I go by the dictionary definition. Something, a server which tracks user behavior online would be the answer I have. And then if you look up the definition of tracking, it's observing and monitoring your behavior.
Fair enough.
We've had this conversation once or twice, I think. It's a difficult one, sorry, just to say, like, do you want to get off? Okay. The problem with defining exactly what a tracker means is that once you've done that, certain companies will then modify their behavior so that it goes outside that definition. I changed my list inclusion policy from servers which are dedicated to the use of tracking to servers that are primarily used for the purpose of tracking and ads. Because some people started putting non-tracking, non-ad content on their servers, specifically so that they could argue with me and say, oh, we're not on there because we use it for other things as well. But if the main purpose of a domain is for tracking or ads, then it goes on the list. And I think that's fair. Oh.
How do you feel about running, maintaining a filter list with a buzz factor of 1? This isn't just you doing this. There's a lot of filter authors that have it's a one-man show. And how do you feel about it?
It's an interesting position to be in. I said at the beginning, I never really planned to be in this position. It's weird, the fact that there's millions of people using something that I maintain, but don't really know about it a lot of the time. Most jobs I've started, I've had this conversation of oh, hi, I'm Peter Lowe, and then 2 weeks later they go, oh, wait, hang on, you're that Peter Lowe, from the blog page. All the stuff I do is open. I have a joke license, but a lot of people use it without asking. So, if I went away, then people could take my list and pretty much carry on pretty easily. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of I like to think I'm doing something good for the internet in some small way, but that's up for other people to use it. So, not a good answer to your question, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess we could extend this question to the people who use your list, like the browsers, the extensions, but that might be a bigger discussion.
It's the one thing I can't monetize. I haven't figured out. I got a job out of it, so.